The chapter starts with the narrator telling that one day Shakky was kidnapped and Don Marlin was killed. The person responsible for it was a traitor inside the Rock's pirates, Ochoko, or Silver Axe. But no one in Hachinosu had any clue how this could have happened. The news of Shakky kidnapping spread throughout the world, and even the economy of the world was paused for several weeks. Silver Axe was very excited reading the news. Gloriosa was crying with sadness and despair, and Roger destroyed the newspaper, and Rayleigh was very worried about Shakky. Roger says, "Rocks! That B word! How could this happen under his watch? I'll kill him!" Rayleigh says, "Shakky!" So yeah, it actually happened. Shakky was kidnapped, and it's not like some kind of grand theory that I guess we had. It was more so just heavily implied 2 chapters ago, you know, with the whole thing about her being the national treasure and how it's being easy to steal or whatever, paraphrasing, but yeah, it happened. But now we're finding out that it was Silver Axe who kidnapped her, or I don't know, allowed her to be kidnapped. Silver Axe is like, you know, that guy that we didn't really see until this flashback. He was one of like the main members of the Rock's pirates, and I guess it makes sense that he is the traitor because, you know, he's like the least known and established Rock's pirates. Like, it wouldn't make sense if like Shakky was the traitor, because it doesn't really seem like Oda wants to dive too much into him anymore. But I also think that this is why Silver Axe had Pirate Island, right? Because we knew that he was like the leader of it before Blackbeard took over, because the whole Rocky Port incident was Law and Kobe like working together to overtake Silver Axe, who was at Hachinosu. So I guess that was like a part of the deal. Him giving up Shakky to the world government, they gave him control of Hachinosu or something like that after the fact. 1 year later, 38 years ago, Garling returned to God Valley. The red-haired woman, we can't see her face during the chapter, introduced him Shamrock and Shanks. Garling was surprised to see their twins and said they're adorable. The red-haired woman asked Garling to live with her on the island, but he said no because God Valley will disappear. Then Garling pulled out his sword and stabbed the woman. At the same time, we can see a lot of marine battleships arriving to the island. While red-haired woman fell to the ground seriously injured, Garling said a wife that's befitting of his status has already been decided. In fact, Garling had placed the order for her to be captured, and she will be his wife if he wins the tournament. That totally makes sense. If Shakky is considered to be the most beautiful woman in the world at this time, then yeah, of course Garling would want her, or just the world government would want Garling to be with her, you know, because it makes sense, at least in their crazy eyes. Also, as we knew, Garling, irredeemable psychopath, of course, just stabbing Shanks and Shamrock's mom, not even caring. And yeah, she's probably going to die from this, considering what we're going to be talking about at the end of this chapter. Citizens of God Valley tried to leave the island because they didn't know what's happening, but Marines stopped them. One of the Marine soldiers was a very young Monkey D. Dragon. His presentation box says, "Future leader of Revolutionary Army and father of Luffy." Dragon didn't want to kill people, so he shot tranquilizers to some guys that attacked him. Dragon asked the purpose of the mission, but his superior shouted him down. So here is the reveal of Marine Dragon. We found out in Kuma's flashback that he was a Marine originally, and it makes sense. You know, he's the son of Garp. What's Garp just going to be like, yeah, don't become a Marine? But it seems like Dragon is just like the black sheep of the monkey family, so he's not cool the way that like Garp and Luffy is. So it's understandable that he's not going to be a Marine, and he actually just wants to be a revolutionary. And he was always a great guy, of course, because he is a monkey. So we see that he's shooting people with tranquilizers. This is actually the most that Dragon has ever done in the series, as far as I know. Cut to a Marine slave ship that was heading to God Valley. We see Ginny leaking information about tournament prizes to the outside. Ivankov was very angry with the other slaves because they lost their fighting spirit. Kuma was in the other part of the ship, but he listened to all and smiled, thinking how energetic are some slaves. So this is tying into Kuma's flashback. We knew that Ginny was leaking information and that, you know, he was with Ivankov and Ginny as well. Cut to a Cipher Pole Information Department facility in an unknown island. A very young Morgans, president of the World Economy newspaper at the time, arrived saying that he has an incredible information. Morgan's was dressed the same as in the present, but he wore a beret on his bird head. Morgan's wanted Cypherpole pay him a bribe to not publish the information, and the Cypherpole agents threatened to erase him, but Morgan's told them to try it if they have enough courage. In any case, Morgan's plans was leaking the information to Hachinosu. Gotta love Morgan's. I thought we'd maybe see Morgan's human form, but I guess we never will. It's not really a big deal. But I just like how he was always not afraid to, you know, clap back at the world government. Pirates of Hachinosu learned that Shakky was being used as the tournament prize in God Valley, so they headed out to save her. Linlin was interested in other prizes, and she wanted good devil fruits for her children. Linlin told Kaido that maybe he can get an interesting devil fruit power too. Then we see Rox, Roger, and Garp on the move to God Valley. On the way to God Valley, Rox was blocked by Harold's ship, sent by the world government. There was a world government ship nearby to make sure Harold follows his orders. Rox asked to drink and speak alone, and Harold accepted. Rox said, "Harold, there's a hidden part of my name. My real name is Davy D. Zebek." And Harold said, "Then Rox is not your name?" Rox said, "My clan is probably something the government has been trying to eliminate for a long time, with the legendary pirate Davy D. Jones as our ancestor. The clan has managed to survive, just barely, in the underworld. I don't know if this is a good thing or not, but I got a kid now. To protect my wife and child from any possible danger, I decided to send them both to my homeland, telling them, rely on the Davy clan." Harold says, "I see, so your relatives and now your family are all in your homeland." And Rox says, "Yeah, that place is God Valley." So here is another huge reveal about Rox. I mean, this is one of the most significant lore reveals in the series so far, for sure. And it's that he's coming from the Davy D. Jones line, which is, you know, Davy Jones, the character that we heard all the way back at Long Ring Long Land when mentioned by Robin. Something about him living at the bottom of the sea and collecting treasure or whatever. That probably has some truth to it. I mean, it's very possible that he is still alive, like at the bottom of the sea, because of whatever crazy devil fruit hockey stuff that was going on back in the Void Century. But it's also very possible that Davy Jones is living on through Blackbeard right now, because, you know, the three skulls might mean that Davy Jones and Rox's soul are both inside of him. Not really too much to go off of other than that, but it does seem likely, right? Really exciting stuff. But the fact that Davy Jones, who is a D now, goes all the way back to God Valley, I think this also has something to do with Joy Boy as well, because Joy Boy for sure is a D. It hasn't been revealed yet, but come on, why wouldn't he be? It would be weird. And it seems like maybe Davy Jones and Joy Boy both created the D lineage, but then they went in their own, you know, split areas. Joy Boy was just like the white meat baby face, great guy, super altruistic superhero, and then Davy Jones was like an anti-hero. And I guess they just couldn't decide on what was the right way to bring the dawn, so they went in their own different paths, as we see with Luffy and Blackbeard and Roger and Rox. It's even possible that Davy Jones is like the brother of Joy Boy. Rox said that he's heading to God Valley to save Shakky, but actually he's going to save his wife and kid. Harold refused to join with Rox and pretended to fight, but he allowed Rox to get away. The chapter ends with an epic double page on the day of the God Valley incident. After the introduction of some prizes, like the rare devil fruits that we saw in Kuma's flashback, the Master of Ceremonies brought Shakky to the stage as the big prize of the tournament. Shakky wore a Kucha costume and looked clean and healthy because they took care of her since she was captured. The MC explained who Shakky was, the former empress of the Island of Women, and said that the winner would decide whether to make her his wife or his slave. The celestial dragons in audience were very excited. We see Garling, young Summers, and Gunko with long hair among the god knights. The girl with the beret and the rifle from the Man Mayor family that we saw in Kuma's flashback was next to Gunko. The Celestial Dragons say, "Amazing! What a beauty, Summers! Make sure to get that for the Shepherd family." Summers says, "Don't be ridiculous. If I win, she's going to be my personal slave." Garling says, "She's going to be my wife, so stay away, even in your dreams, Summers." And Mayor Girl says, "Gunko, now that we have you, we might be able to get a trophy in the clan war." So, we're seeing more of the Holy Knights here. Very cool. Young Summers. We assumed that this was going to be the thing since he was old when we saw him in current time. So we assumed he was probably a Holy Knight for a very long time, just as long as Garling was. And as for that Man Mayor Rifle Girl saying to Gunko, like, now that we have you, you could look really deep into that and try to figure out what that exactly means. But I think it more so means that Gunko is no longer like Imu's direct servant, and maybe she just went out to the field, because when we saw Rox breaking into the Room of Flowers and talking to Imu, Gunko was like her little handmaid girl. So maybe that's what they're talking about here. Cut to Dragon. He discovered the wounded red-haired woman inside a house because he followed a trail of blood. The woman says, please, take my children away from this land. Don't let him have them. We also see Kid Teach and his mom, face not shown, handcuffed in a cage. Teach's mother says, come here, Teach. It's going to be all right. You have to survive this no matter what. Oh, wow. All right. So it's Dragon who put Shanks inside that treasure chest. Or at least the implication is that he's the one that is doing it. Or eventually. I mean, I guess we'll find out in the next 2 chapters. But that would be pretty wild if it was Dragon the whole time that led to the Roger Pirates discovering Shanks. And yes, it does seem... Sorry for laughing. It does seem like Shanks' mom is going to die here like we assumed. Whatever. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just, come on. It's really... interesting how that always happens. And then young Teach is here. Yeah, and then young Blackbeard is here. He was a slave inside of the cage, just the way that Kuma and his dad was. I'm guessing Blackbeard's mom gets killed here because why not? He is a D, which makes me think that Shanks is a D as well. But this for sure goes into Blackbeard's tragic backstory. And since he is here, we might eventually see Rox somehow putting his soul in Blackbeard. I know, crazy. We might not see it, but there might be implications that something like that happens at least. The chapter ends with the last big announcement to all the Celestial Dragons from the Master of Ceremonies. He says, and now, you can call yourself a world noble if you haven't heard of them. Aside from that brat from the Buccaneer clan, we have another super rare rabbit for this tournament. Finally, a rediscovery after 800 years, the Davy clan! End of chapter. So yeah, they know... Blackbeard is from the Davy clan, and I guess that's what Saturn was talking about to Katarina Devon. He has special blood. It's the Davy clan blood. He still could be a Buccaneer, but considering that there's like a big distinction right now between Kuma being a Buccaneer and Blackbeard coming from the Davy clan, probably not. But let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. Next week's chapter, I think we're getting into the God Valley incident. Oh my god, it's going to be one of the greatest moments in One Piece history. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. If you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you next one.